I think VR sim racing is about to change forever. In fact, I think we're going to get to the point imminently where if you want the ultimate sim racing experience, just sim racing, you're going to want to be in a VR headset. It's going to beat a lot of the trade-offs that we've had to compromise in the past. This is because of the Pimax Crystal Super. So I'm in a pretty kind of lucky position to talk about this because I have the original Pimax Crystal and I have the Pimax Crystal Lite, and the imminent headset is a Pimax Crystal Super. So these were both provided to me by Pimax. This is a sponsored headset, so important you know that, but I'm going to give you my honest thoughts here. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons just so we can all be aware of it. What they're promising with the Pimax Crystal Super is a retina display that is actually going to be 4K in each lens. So if you don't know how VR works, a lot of headsets say they're 4K, but they're not really. They kind of share a 4K panel. Because you've got two lenses, you really want to have a 4K kind of experience in both eye. And the Pimax Crystal Super is finally going to give that experience. Now, I just want to talk about the lineage of PC VR sim racing and the trade-offs that we have at the moment and how this Pimax Crystal Super could overcome those trade-offs. So this is the Pimax Crystal. This is a headset from Pimax that is very bulky. It has a battery in the back. I don't know if you can see here, but that is a battery pack there. And it's quite heavy and quite big. I really enjoy using it. I still use the Pimax Crystal because it has a very good resolution. Not quite 4K in each eye. We're not there yet with this. Very good resolution that I can run at 72, 90 or 120 Hz. A very high frame rates on a big PC. See the Alienware behind me. So this is kind of where we start. You can see the compromises. It's bulky, it's heavy, it's got a battery pack in the back. Then we move to the Pimax Crystal Lite. This deals with a lot of the issues people have with the Pimax Crystal. It's a lot lighter. I mean, this is like a lot lighter. It doesn't have a battery pack in the back. It's got slightly different form factor to make it slightly more comfortable. But basically that lightness is huge. It doesn't have all of the bells and whistles of the Pimax Crystal. There's some changing with the foveated rendering. It can't be used standalone because it doesn't have a battery. But for sim racing, I think generally this is going to be a better headset for most people. And I've done a lot of sim racing in both of these headsets. Still, we have the compromises. They're quite big headsets and it's not quite 4K resolution in each eye. So then we move to the Pimax Crystal Super. They say this is going to be 30% less bulky. So already we can see we're continuing this trend of making things less bulkier. They also say it's going to have this retina display with 4K in each lens, which is absolutely huge because that means finally we're going to experience true 4K in a VR sim racing headset. You've got to understand as well, when we talk about 4K, if you've got a 4K TV and you're playing your PlayStation on a controller, you're going to be quite a long way away from that TV. So you're really not going to see any pixels. If you're doing sim racing, and let's say you're sim racing on a 4K monitor, that's going to be a lot closer to you. The 4K in the lens is going to be really close to you. So it's still not going to be quite the same visual experience as being a little bit further away from a 4K monitor. But that makes it even more important that you have actual 4K. Pimax are saying you're not going to be able to see the pixels. They're saying aliasing is going to be much improved just because there's going to be so many pixels to deal with that. I will let you know honestly when I go hands-on with it. But that's absolutely huge. It's going to run out of the box, I say, at 72 to 90 Hz with 120 Hz support in the lab mode. I strongly suspect that 120 Hz will just kind of be a feature they'll add over time as a general thing. I suspect they're working out some quirks. And they also say the lenses are being specially designed to get as much of that 4K in. I think it's 120 degrees field of view. They're working with some of the best lens manufacturers. And the lenses on, especially on my Pimax Crystal original one, incredible experience in those lenses. Now let's talk about the competition as well. So here I'm showing you basically some of the best PC VR sim racing headsets you can get. Also, you have stuff like the Quest 3. But the Quest 3 is normally used as a standalone headset and the graphics are not good. I'll show you some racing footage right now. This is grid in the Quest 3. Really not good graphics. So you don't need a big PC to run it. It's a very light headset. It's very comfortable. There's no wires at all, but they're the trade-offs again. PSVR 2 has an amazing OLED display, but it's not the PS5. Even the PS5 Pro we're seeing doesn't quite have the same grunt to run it as, say, something like my Alienware here. So trade-offs there. Now, the Pimax Crystal Super, I understand, is kind of a QLED display, so it's not quite an OLED, but it is a QLED. So again, I'll let you know how that's going to be. They also say they've improved things like the top straps and all these things about comfort. They get so much feedback. Now, one of the biggest things that I think is going to be controversial, and I think they're going to need to explain, and kind of I'm interpreting it here, is these headsets are now available to buy with a subscription. And I think that's going to have a lot of connotations. I think the massive benefit from what I've seen is, and this is a huge benefit, is you can now try one of these headsets, and if you don't like it, return it within 10 days. I think that's massive. I was at the Sim Racing Expo in Germany. I saw Pimax. Pimax were there on site. They were the only VR company on site, and they were working non-stop getting headsets ready for queues of people to try. And I was watching people try. I was speaking to them afterwards, and pretty much everyone loved it. I think because Pimax were there, they were adjusting the straps. They were adjusting the IPD. They were making sure everyone had the headset fitted correctly, which is huge. And a lot of people came out, it's like, wow, this is incredible. So giving people an opportunity to try it for 10 days and return it could be a massive game changer in VR sim racing, because you no longer have to worry too much about making this very expensive outlay, because these are very expensive headsets in the context, because they're much more expensive than the Meta Quest 3. So that's a big risk for Pimax. I think they're betting that the headsets are so good that so many people are going to buy it and absolutely love it, and kind of then going to want to get more Pimax headsets in the future. There is also the subscription side. I think it seems to be like buying a phone, where you pay a bit up front and then you pay a bit over time with a subscription, or you can pay it all up front. There's different price points. I'll put a link in the description so you can see. Let me know if you've got any questions about it, and I'll put it to Pimax. But that's how the subscription is working for the Pimax Play part. But ultimately, it seems like with that subscription, you get the 10 days. Very interesting way of selling the headsets. Pimax, I think in sim racing, are pretty much the only VR headset company pushing sim racing. I'm not aware of anyone else pushing sim racing like Pimax. They were certainly the only company at the Sim Racing Expo, which is why I've agreed to test these headsets for them, give them a lot of feedback. I give them a lot of honest kind of thoughts on what I like, what I don't like. I said I don't need the battery on this one. So it was amazing to see the Pimax Crystal Light come out as well. That's a whistle stop tour. Let me know any questions you have on VR sim racing, because I've got the PSVR 2 on the PS5 Pro. I've got the Quest 3 as well. I've got these two headsets. I've got a DPVR E4 headset. I've got so many VR headsets, and I personally love sim racing in VR. So I'm really personally invested in terms of, this is a hobby I want to spend more time in, to having a less bulky, having a higher resolution experience at a high frame rate. And the Pimax Crystal Super is potentially this promised land where, if the quality is good, if the reliability is good, if the software is good, if the pricing is good, that's something that I can recommend to people and say, definitely go and try it out. And you've got 10 days to return. So hopefully you can see why I'm excited about it. Big thanks to Pimax for sending me these previous headsets. Hopefully I get to try the Pimax Crystal Super and give you my honest thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.